What's up, you today? Today, man. Today we are reacting to why werewolves are terrible predators. Listen. Here's the reason why I think werewolves are terrible predators. I look, you think they're good predators. I don't think werewolves are terrible predators. Keep it a buck. That's just me though. That's just me though. You know? I don't think they're terrible predators. I'd rather be a werewolf than a vampire. Who want to be a vampire? Like seriously. Know what I want to be a vampire for Twilight, bro. But without further ado, man.
Hey guys, I've been doing some of this thinking stuff again. And I believe if a werewolf is chasing you, you're probably having.
Whoa. What's that sound effect? What's that? Whoa. Y'all saw too much. I'm gonna have the editors edit that out real quick.
One of the worst nights available to the human experience. I mean, maybe not the worst, but it's a competitive pick. Imagine yourself walking home. It's quiet, maybe a little too quiet. And then something moves in the back of your eye. You try not to overthink it, but you can't help the goosebumps. It's too fast to be a person, and too heavy to be a dog. And when you decided that panicking is appropriate, it's already over. That's what makes werewolves work so well in the moment. They hit fast, hard, and they feel like a human nightmare that suddenly grew claws. But if I zoom out of that confrontation, past the panic and the blood, and the very dramatic moonlighting, werewolves have a huge problem. They are terrifying predators for about 10 minutes. After that, everything actually starts going wrong. Because the real question isn't whether a werewolf is strong or could kill you, obviously it could. But the interesting question is whether a creature like that could keep surviving for long without starving, recklessly exposing itself, getting hunted down, or turning its own food supply into more competition. Which
Alright. Do y'all think there's werewolves nowadays? Keep it a buck. Y'all think if there's werewolves nowadays? Yeah. Y'all think it's werewolves? I think it's werewolves. I ain't gonna lie. But they, it could be hit. It could be like the team. It could be like the Teen Wolf werewolf. Sure, if you know, you know. It could be like the Teen Wolf werewolves. It can't be the Underworld werewolves or Van Helsing werewolves. Cause it's not gonna be good. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. But like I low-key think vampires and werewolves low-key live among us. But hey, I'm just a messenger. You feel me?
brings me to my claim that werewolves are far from their perfect hunter depiction, and are actually the least sustainable predator design fantasy has ever fallen in love with. So give me a second to present my case. Because I'm not just going to rant that werewolves are bad monsters. They are not. Honestly, it's the opposite. But they just work way better in specific ways. But that's for later in the video. The easiest way to see their flaws is to compare them to the monster they always get paired with: vampires. Vampires are dangerous because they are patient. They hide, choose their moments, feed with control. They can basically live right next to human society, and in a lot of stories survive specifically because nobody can fully prove they exist. A truly smart vampire does not want attention, it only wants access. But a werewolf survives by turning into a 7-foot public incident and hoping nobody starts connecting the unusually shredded dots. That difference, unsurprisingly, matters a lot. But that's not even the main reason I'm arguing for. But comparing the two monsters shows that a vampire is built for long-term predation. It
Come
can
on,
feed
bro.
without always killing.
Come on, bro. I low-key think Brody just hating on werewolves today, bro. I low-key think Brody just hating on werewolves. That just I just low-key think bro's hating on werewolves. I ain't gonna lie. I low-key think he's hating on werewolves. Why is why is it like that? Oh, that's just a video, cuz. That's just a video, bro. But no, I low-key think he's hating on werewolves. I ain't gonna lie. Like, what? Bro, you haven't watched no other werewolf shows? Bro, you haven't watched no other werewolf shows, bro? Bro, you sound like he's hating right now. All right, we're 5 minutes into the video. All right, my fault.
Without always killing. It can disappear after feeding, and it can stay close to its food source because secrecy is part of its strategy. A werewolf is built for burst predation. huge output, huge risk, and huge exposure. The whole design screams short-term violence, but sadly not long-term survival. And burst predators have lots of problems. The first one is so iconic that most werewolf stories accidentally normalize how bad it is. The full moon is an awful hunting schedule. It's great for folklore, but it's terrible for an actual predator. Predators want control. They want to choose when to hunt, where to hunt, how often to risk injury, and how much energy to spend. A classic werewolf gets none of that. It gets a lunar alarm clock from hell. That creates three obvious problems. The first is predictability. If humans know when werewolves are active, they would adapt. They lock doors, travel in groups, arm themselves, avoid forests, roads, and isolated farmhouses. They prepare silver if the setting uses silver. They chain up suspected victims if the world has figured the condition out. They
But
would
wait,
automatically.
hold up. They'll do the same thing for vampires though. Like, see what I mean? Bro, trying to rage bait me this video. Tell me, oh, they're predictable. Nah, not really. Have you seen Teen Wolf Werewolves? They're actually not predictable. Same thing with Underworld Werewolves, because did they learn how to control their form? Am I mistaken? Like, what? Like, you tell me humans can't prepare stakes, like wooden stakes and fire for vampires? But they can prepare silver for werewolves. Come on, bro. Let's lock in, bro. I think you're trying to rage bait me
As
now.
watchers and set traps. A creature that hunts on an actual public calendar is not an unknowable predator. That makes werewolves scarier as superstition, but worse as animals. Animals do not benefit from giving their prey a monthly prep day. The second problem is feeding rhythm. If the werewolf only fully emerges on certain nights, then its feeding opportunities are limited unless the human body is somehow covering the energy bill the rest of the month. That means one of two things is happening. Either the werewolf form is expected to eat enough in a very short window to justify an absorbed metabolic event, which is a lot to ask even from a giant predator, or the human form is already constantly feeding and storing resources, meaning the werewolf transformation is basically cashing in on a body that has been subsidizing monster mode in secret. Neither option is really elegant, but at least there's space for an explanation. But the third problem is quite severe. It's opportunity. Real predators do not enjoy waiting for celestial scheduling. They hunt when prey is available, when conditions are favorable, when hunger demands it, or when offspring need food. A werewolf then has to become active according to moon phases, loses flexibility. And flexibility is one of the best things a predator can have. That's actually one of the reasons Harry Potter's versions of lycanthropy works better than a lot of people give it credit for. Remus Lupin's condition is treated like a recurring biological and social catastrophe. There's preparation, medication, fear of failure, containment, and real consequence if anything goes wrong. The full moon actually makes his life structurally worse. The Wolfman does the classic version beautifully for folklore, but that's exactly the point. It works because it feels like a curse. And Van Helsing gives you explosive, visually intense werewolves. And those are great for action, but they feel like something that dominates a short scene and not something that could maintain a stable hunting strategy for years. So, right from the start, the werewolf already has a scheduling problem. However, it actually gets way worse once you look at the body itself, because the transformation itself is terribly expensive. I feel like this part gets skipped because people are so used to the visual of bone cracking and body stretching that they stop asking the most basic question. Isn't that a crazy burden on the body? A werewolf transformation is not a small costume change. Bones lengthen, muscle mass expands, teeth and claws grow. The skeleton shifts shape, the face restructures, skin stretches, tears, heals. Senses intensify, body temperature probably changes. Neuroprocessing gets redirected towards aggression, hunting, and sensory overload. That's an insane amount of biological work. Bodies are expensive even when they're doing normal body things. Healing a broken bone burns up to 20% more calories than normal. Growing muscles, recovering from illness, those
Ew.
things are already really
They
expensive.
should never made that werewolf movie, man. Fuck's that? Bro, you just like a Sasquatch. Fuck. Come
Building
on.
yourself into a murder engine in a matter of hours, if not minutes, is not something you pay for with a sandwich and a difficult childhood. So either the werewolf is gaining mass during the transformation, which opens up a fun nightmare question about where that mass is coming from, or it's rearranging the same body into a new form, which still costs huge amounts of energy while keeping hard physical limits in place. If the werewolf gains mass from nowhere, then fine, your setting is invoking supernatural fuel. But then the transformation is even more dependent on a curse or a magical process than on biology.
Bro,
If
that
the
shit
werewolf does
ugly as
not
hell.
gain mass, then it's reshaping a finite amount of material into a more weaponized form, which means its actual size and power have tighter limits than stories often like to admit. Either way, there's story depth. And that would also mean that the werewolf doesn't just hunt because it enjoys violence or because the curse wants blood. It hunts because its body just spent a ridiculous amount of resources turning itself into a monster, which would actually explain werewolves often shown impulsiveness a bit better. That's another place where the vampire comparison is useful. A vampire is efficient. It feeds with relatively little physical restructuring. It gets in, extracts calories or blood or life force depending on the setting, and gets out. A werewolf first turns itself into a high performance meat vehicle and then has to recover the cost of becoming one.
So nope, this man's low key making me mad. He's not talking about the other variants of wolves, bruh. He's not talking about other variants of wolves, bruh. He only talking about the underworld and Van Helsing ones, bruh. He's not talking about the other ones, bruh. And it's making me mad. It's making me mad. Yeah, he added some Teen Wolf clips, but he not explaining because they're like what? Like Brody making vampires seem like they're the most superior with the biggest meat. No, I got the biggest meat. What's bro talking about? What's bro talking about? Bro, my keyboard keep tweaking, bro. But nah, hold on. I'm gonna go back to this one. Hold on. What's this at? What's this at? What's this at? Oh, hold on. Bro, what's that one? Oh, right here. This guy. What's this? What is this? Okay. What's this? What is this? This is the dinosaur ages of werewolves. Okay. Let's keep going now.
Harder to buy. And then there's a very underrated, overlooked problem, the prey choice problem. Because werewolves are usually shown hunting humans. Humans are objectively bad prey. They're not bad prey because they're physically hard to kill. They are bad prey because of what happens after the kill. Humans live in groups. They communicate danger. They investigate deaths. They organize revenge. They use traps, fire, dogs, silver, folklore, and increasingly annoying teamwork. A predator that actually hunts humans is starting a social chain counter reaction. If it kills one villager, the whole village starts sharpening things. That's why man-eaters in real life become famous so quickly, because human hunting predators trigger an organized response. A smart predator wants prey that gives good energy for low risk. Humans are high-risk prey because humans escalate. And the worst part is that I don't even give equivalently high energy when slain. So if I'm trying to imagine a werewolf behaving like an actual optimized predator, it probably does not prioritize humans most of the time. It will go for livestock, deer, and maybe isolated prey. But full-on werewolf eats townspeople every month is not predator logic. That's curse logic. It is narrative logic and folklore punishing civilization with something animal-shaped. Because the problem with eating humans is that humans tend to take it personally. No idea why. And once we get to werewolf bites, the whole design starts looking a bit over the top. The werewolf bite is one of those ideas that is brilliant for horror and a proper mess for ecology. If every successful attack can create another werewolf, then the werewolf is reproducing by turning prey into more predators. On paper, that sounds terrifying, but in practice, it is population management by meltdown and just making its own hunts harder. Because more werewolves mean more competition and also more visibility, panic and hunters. And ecologically, more consumption pressure on local prey, and more chances for unstable individuals to expose themselves to humanity. If the infection spreads easily, the setting starts having a werewolf outbreak. That can actually be a great story, but it's not a stable predator model. If the infection spreads rarely, then werewolves remain anomalies, which works much better. You get tragedies, bloodline storylines, local disasters, and social paranoia without instantly creating a self-destructive population boom. That's another way vampires and werewolves.
Alright, bro. If y'all don't watch the rest of the video, bro, y'all know where to go, bro. Cause this man just pissing me off. He acting like vampires. The more vampires is, the more they could be found. But the vampires are so secretive. It can hide, and the werewolves can't. Bro, this sounds dumb as hell. But I'm not gonna judge, bro. YouTube is just a joke. But no further ado, man. See y'all on the next one. Peace.